Let's talk a little bit in this lesson about updating your blog. So I have the index file open and I have the Britain file open. And just to review, the Britain file is the one that has the full post. So the full blog post is on a separate page called Britain, just one example page. And then on our home page, which is index.html, we have 4 excerpts. So for the Britain story, some of the text from that main blog post has been copied and pasted here to create what's called an excerpt. So we've discussed it before, but just to review, when you're working with something like a newspaper or an online blog, you don't want to just run one story on the homepage. You want to run multiple stories. So hopefully one of those, or more than one of those, will draw your user in and have them explore your site even more. Now, in this particular situation, the way we have this set up, we have to go in here and change each one of these individually. And it can be a little bit cumbersome because we have to go in and do it ourselves and automatically copy and paste the text. If you decide at some point to take this even further, now that you have a basis in HTML5 and CSS, you could use something like a content management system. One of the most popular ones is WordPress, and that one would allow you to go in and update your posts a lot easier. And they would be dynamic. So you can add the information, you can decide that you want to add tags to them and have them appear on certain pages automatically. So now that you've got a good basis of working with HTML5 and again, styling things with CSS, and you've played a little bit with this template in your HTML editor, you might want to consider taking it a little bit further and using something like WordPress to really make a dynamic blog that would be so much easier to update. So I'm glad that I've been able to share this with you. One of the most popular ones is WordPress. There are other ones out there. You can just do a search in your favorite browser window for content management systems or blogs and get some more information. But WordPress is the one that I use. I like it very much. In this lesson, let's take a look at how easy it is to update or change the formatting of our content because we're using CSS. So I'm in my favorite HTML editor, which I happen to use Dreamweaver, and I'm in the Lesson 8 folder. Let me show you where it is. In Chapter 8, and I've opened the Bridges blog folder, and I've got the homepage open, which is index.html. That's what I'm seeing right here. I'm in split view, which is one thing I really like about Dreamweaver, so I can see my code and I can see the design at the same time. I've gone down here to my blog postings and I'm clicking and just selecting or clicking in this text for these subheads and going over and taking a look at my code, and I can see that in my code the style that is used is called H2. So what if we were to change the color of H2? It would automatically update not only on this page, but we can have it update on all of our pages because we're using an external style sheet. So I know H2 is the one I want to change. I'm going to scroll to the top in the head section where it's referring to the CSS file. Again, it's a separate file that's attached to each web page. So I'm going to right click on it and choose Open that CSS file. It's a text file with a bunch of coding, and I scroll down here until I find H2, and this is where I can go in and change the color. So I'm going to go in here and select this FFF and change it to FFFF00. I'm going to save my file, and then I'm going to go back here, and you'll see that all of my headlines that are in H2 automatically updated to a bright yellow. That was the color that I chose. So in just a few seconds, I was able to change that content. If I had 50 web pages, I could change all 50 at once because I'm using an external style sheet, and I opened that style sheet, made the change, and Dreamweaver or the HTML editor that you use would automatically update it on all the pages. That's just an example of how easy it is to update your content using CSS and HTML5. So just to wrap things up on our HTML workshop for beginners, I wanted to just review some of the things that we've talked about. I've shown you some of the new tags and talked about which browsers support them. I've also talked to you a little bit about things like video, and again, learning about the video element and which tags support the video element as it moves forward in HTML5. We also talked about color on the web, and we learned about saving graphic files. We learned the best formats to save them in, and we also talked a little bit about the Save for Web feature that's a part of Photoshop and Illustrator. And then we also talked about our code. We moved into using an HTML editor. I happen to use Dreamweaver, which is my editor of choice. And we talked about going in and editing directly in the code, or also editing things on the page and having it be updated in the code. Here we talked about the aside element, which creates a sidebar for your content. We talked about different blog postings and creating excerpts. So this particular blog posting links to a separate page that has the entire blog post. But on the home page, we have what's called an excerpt, where it just gives you a little teaser about the article. We talked about adding a header and a simple nav bar at the very top of our header. We talked about bringing graphics in. So we've done a lot of basics, getting our blog posting set up and learning about HTML5. We also talked about the doc type. The very first line in your code tells the browser that it's an HTML5 document. So these are just some of the things that we've covered in this basic class on getting to know HTML and HTML5 specifically. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm wishing you the very best for your endeavors in HTML5, and I look forward to seeing you again in another workshop.